public comment card, but if anybody else wants to make public comment, cards are up here. Just get them to us, and please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Kim, you want to do roll call?
Yeah. Roll call tonight, starting with Dr. Breckenridge-Pettit,
Aye.
Dr. Hill, Mr. Hobbs, Mrs. Lundberg.
Aye.
She is here via the phone. She's here. Mrs. Pascal.
Here.
Ms. Schickman.
Here.
And Mr. Smith.
Here. Jumping in, board member comments. Any comments from the board? Go for it, Jenny.
I will be efficient. And for the sake of clarity, with regard to the collective bargaining team, I wanted to talk with you or just present a concern, maybe. So with regard to the new spring timeline that you have for collective bargaining, we should be able to meet, the deadline, the May deadline for updating leave. We think we think we can do that. However, we're a little behind on policy book G, which is negotiated policy. So we may not have our priorities or any changes or recommendations that we have. It may not fit that timeline. And so we may have to go to the right of that, but we won't know until February. So that may move to the right, and we'll work with you, and we just want to give you as much advance notice as possible. Oh, later. Yes, I'm sorry. Right. Yeah, exactly. Sorry about that. Right. Moving it to the right, we may not be able to review the policy, get our input from our peers, have the attorney look at it, and then come back with ranking order if there are even any changes. We don't know yet, but that may happen. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. I will just say, I emailed the community today. It was interesting to see that. I emailed myself, but thank you to all of you that helped make that happen and get that out and wordsmith and make me sound educated and smart about school taxes and things. So appreciate all the support and help with that. And hopefully those kind of communications are beneficial to the community. So with nobody else, looking at written messages to the board, we had that audit letter come through, so that's where that landed, that we saw via email. And public comments, Evelyn, loving the bus. The floor is yours. Thank you, Evelyn. Okay, looking to approve the agenda with the following changes. We're going to remove items 3B, claims payable, all funds and claims payable bills over $20,000. And we're going to table item 3GI, third reading of CHCA handbook and directives to February meeting. That's correct. That's all we got.
Yeah.
Okay, so looking for a motion to make those approval of the agenda with those changes. Thank you, Mandy and Jen. Any questions? Hearing none, go ahead.
All right. Dr. Breckenridge-Pettit.
Aye.
Dr. Hill.
Aye.
Mr. Hobbs. Ms. Lumberg,
Aye.
Mrs. Pascal, Ms. Schickman,
Aye.
and Mr. Smith.
Aye. Reports. Guest reports. We have a presentation. We have Rob Simpson and Ben Carnes here from CMC. Take over. You do what you want. That's fine.
So this is going to be a little bit discombobulated and sort of stream of consciousness. Stream of consciousness will be over the past couple weeks, just thinking about what sort of things you all want to know. So this first slide is really great. Do I have to stand here and awkwardly hold this, Matt? Okay. This first slide is just to give you a sense of our continued growth and development. And these are new courses that have come into existence through concurrent enrollment over the course of the last 12 months. So that first one, Intro to Ski Area Operations, is a brand new class that we are offering this semester. If you were a student at the Leadville campus enrolled in the associate's degree in ski area operations, that is the first course that you would take in that sequence. And so Ben reached out maybe a year ago and said, hey, I'd like to see us develop a concurrent enrollment course that is an entry point for students that might be interested in that as a career pathway. And I believe that we are the only campus that followed through on that. So this has been in the making for a long time, partnering with our colleagues up the hill at Monarch. So next Friday, I will load up a van full of 10 students from Salida High School and drive them up to Monarch for their first class. The class will take place over the course of the semester, and it's to do two things. Number one, to expose students to the ski industry very broadly. And also, if that becomes an area of interest for the student, that those students might then matriculate into that program at the Leadville campus down the road. The second item on there, the National Center for Construction Education and Research, NCCER. We've talked about that a good bit. I just want to give you an update on sort of where that pathway stands. And there may or may not be a handout in your packet that's a one-page document, kind of just giving a snapshot. But the three-course combination of what we're calling core and then carpentry 1 and 2 are going to be offered over the course of the next year. So Sean Simpson, Woods teacher at the high school, taught the core class this fall, and it's really meant to be an introduction to power tools, an introduction to construction math, and sort of foundational material for anyone that wants to go towards that pathway. He's teaching that same exact class again this spring. And then the goal is that between those two cohorts of students, we'd have a viable cohort of students next fall that want to continue progressing. And they would take a 6-credit college course next fall called Basic Carpentry 1. We have, for the better part of the last year, been planning on partnering with Fading West for that. We are not going to do that now. And I won't go down that rabbit hole, but plan B, what's that? Yeah. Plan B right now is for us to pull 5 contractors in the room about 4 weeks from now and basically say, we need your help executing this class next year for high school students. And I'm pretty confident that somebody is going to step up to the plate. Anything you want to add about core? Great. I won't go through.
So by offering that course consistent with Salida High School, it opened all of the pathways for students. And we will kind of strategically add, we did have conversations about, do we add all in Salida? Do we actually have different courses in Valley? We do summer intensives. But it does open up something like 90 different trade-related certs for students. So heavy machinery is something we'll offer in the summer that builds on that course.
Yeah.
It's like ocean.
Can you also just mention the change in like degree coursework plans that the CMC's changed around trades? Because I think that's significant.
So CMC now does have a trades, it's called multi-occupational trades degree. So student can take any 45 credits of any trades within coursework and 15 credits of gen eds and get associates in applied science and trades. So a Salida High School student could theoretically, even though we're just having courses right now, get a half of them that would be with high school, and then pursue trades. So that actually just got approved by the state last couple weeks. First off,
mention a couple other brief things and then we'll move on. The math courses, Spanish 3 and 4 and art appreciation. I think one of the things that's worthy of celebration about those is that if you all remember the last 3 years, CMC has partnered with the district to write the concurrent enrollment expansion and innovation grant. We've been funded for $50K all 3 of those years. That money primarily is to be used to support Salida High School and HEA teachers that want to pursue a graduate degree so that they can teach concurrent enrollment courses. So each of those math courses, think about Josh Bechtel, Spanish, think about Renee for Z, and art appreciation, Janine for Z. All of those folks have taken advantage of funding through that grant to pursue either a graduate degree or advanced training so that they can teach concurrent enrollment courses. So next year, well, this year, Josh taught a number of courses for us and was a fantastic addition. And then next year, Janine and Renee will both have finished their requisite credentials to be able to teach concurrent enrollment courses. So those are some new courses that we're rolling out next year. And then the last one I'll mention on that list is the emergency medical responder. That's a course that's sort of a precursor to a student that might want to pursue an EMT certification. And it's meant to give sort of foundational medical knowledge, whether a student is thinking about going to a nursing program or respiratory therapy or a 4-year health program. That course, which we're also rolling out next year, is meant to sort of be broad exposure to the healthcare field. All right, I'm going to jump to the next one. We've talked a lot about internships and career day. I think the last time I was with you all was the day of career day. That third bullet there is sort of unfolding as we speak. So kudos to Fred Maxwell, who continues to absolutely crush it in his role. But Fred, through the state, about 6 months ago, found out about this work-based learning incentive program. And so the short version of a long story is that there's some funding available through the state to support businesses that are hosting high school interns. So Fred has worked with 6 businesses over the course of the last few months. They've sort of done all the requisite hoop jumping. And last week on the phone, they told him the check is in the mail. And so we have 4 local businesses that sort of went through all that, and they are each going to get a check between $6,000 and $10,000 in the next few months. And that they can choose whatever they want to do with that. If they want to go back and give a student a stipend that was an intern for them, or if they want to use that to support hosting more interns, that's ultimately up to them. The coolest part of that is the woman that Fred has been working with through this whole process told him not one other entity that she was working with followed through on this process. And that, according to her, we were the only entity that sort of went through all those steps to get this funding for 4 local businesses. So I won't mention them yet, but when they actually get the checks, we'll make a big deal out of that, because that's kind of a cool thing worth celebrating. And then the last item on there is we are hosting a PD day for teachers from Salida High School, HEA, some of our colleagues from up the mountain in Leadville on February 23rd. And when I say we, CMC. And the large topic around that day is going to be how we more effectively implement work-based learning opportunities. So we've got a keynote speaker for Canyon City that's probably 5 years ahead of us in this process that's going to come up. If any of you would like to be a part of that day, you are certainly welcome to be there. We're bringing in a number of folks. I don't know, anything else you want to say about that?
I mean, it comes from the coaction grant, to school districts as well, around work-based and and so one of the things we talked about was having a chance just to get educators together and about this kind of silly have a little bit together on this one we have. So that's just it's gonna be a fun day to get education to talk about how does education make the whole.
All right, you want to jump to the next one? This one's you, I think, Ben.
Yeah, so you will see, in terms of healthcare pathways update, this is not so much specifically for our SEPA partnership with us school district, but I think it's a big topic within Salida. Yeah, sorry for the creepy mannequin in the background. So as a lot of you know, nursing was sort of always part of the conversation here about when CMC would come. And one of the challenges we have faced internally within CMC, as we've even started those conversations, is the hospital here is much too small to host the clinical hours that we would need for the nursing program. Our Steamboat program has a hospital twice the size of Salida's hospital. We still struggle to get nurses through that program because of clinical hours. If we go to the Front Range, you're competing with Pueblo, you're competing with UCCS, you're competing with
other schools that already have nursing programs for clinical hours. And so I have been acutely aware of our need to deliver for this community some kind of healthcare related pathways and support for rural healthcare, but it's not been entirely clear to us what exactly we should do and what would actually work. So after a lot of kind of thought around this and internal conversations, we're actually going to hire an outside firm to come and do a study about what could nursing work here? Like, could it actually work here? What would that model even look like to do nursing here? And if nursing can't work here, what other kinds of options are there? I mean, is there an option for prerequisites and then pathways into other partner institutions with, payback loan forgiveness programs for students to come back? Are there other healthcare pathways? Rob and I worked really hard a couple years ago on a respiratory therapy pathway because that was a big need here in the hospital. And all of the students moved on to other career paths in the process of becoming respiratory therapists. And there's wage questions. There's lots of complexity in the healthcare industry. And so we are going to be launching a study specifically around nursing, but more broadly around what healthcare pathways and healthcare careers do make the most sense that would be supportive of your local hospital, but also could be supported by your local hospital because of its size. And then the one other quick note on here is also not super SEPA specific, but potentially is we were awarded about $200K from the Department of Higher Ed recently to participate, to develop a program around wildfire and wildfire mitigation. So we actually wrote that proposal together with Colorado Fire Camp. And so the next 2 years, we'll be developing a degree, probably more like a certificate, that could launch someone into a career in wildland fuel mitigation. The very challenging thing about this is the college has a general policy that we don't launch programs, we don't pay living wages. You don't get paid living wages to mitigate fuels in the forest. You get paid living wages when the forest catches on fire. So we'll be working with Forest Service and other local employers as well to figure out what kind of education could actually lead to specific career pathways in fuel mitigation that might actually pay living wages. So that's a project we're launching in the next 2 years. I think certainly high school seniors could tap into something like that as we develop it. I should pause. Questions on either of those two things, the healthcare stuff, wildfire stuff? I have a lot of questions.
I'll just breeze through this because I think some of you are aware of this, but we last summer through this Rural Co-Action Grant, we had about 15 students from Salida that participated in one of those 3 courses. The outdoor leadership experience was a 9-day trip that Fred Maxwell and I led with 12 students from Salida High School. And then we had a handful of students participate in the heavy equipment training up in Leadville, and then a couple of students from Salida High School that also participated in the Colorado history class. We are running all 3 of those and potentially 1 or 2 other classes again this summer because we're in year 2 of that grant funding. And so that was a pretty cool opportunity for students to get some exposure to a career of interest to them, and they didn't pay a dime for it. That entire thing was funded through that co-action grant. Yeah. Yeah.
For that history course,
yeah,
were they students that were interested in being teachers, kind of like what the flyer said?
Yep.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right, and they could always change, but that's what they're feeling. Thank you.
This slide sort of speaks for itself. Just wanted you to see the exponential growth that we continue to experience with concurrent enrollment students. So that furthest column, 2023, 166 individual unique students that took at least one concurrent enrollment course during calendar year of 2023. And that doesn't seem to be slowing down. This was a cool thing that we did for the first time in October. My colleague, Carrie Vignali, who is the concurrent enrollment coordinator for CMC, but is at the high school most days, put together a CMC campus tour, and we visited our Breckenridge and Leadville campus. We took 2 vanfuls of students. We actually had a waiting list. So we had 10 students from HEA and 10 students from Salida High School. And we started the day at the Breck campus. That furthest left photograph was our first stop. This was probably the best stop of the day in the culinary program. We rolled in there and he had made homemade crepes for everyone. And he had this TV that was facing down at his cooking station. And so he was doing a demo. And then we talked to a couple of folks from other programs. And then we went over to Leadville, had lunch on the Leadville campus. That middle picture, you can't quite tell, but that's actually Jesse Hull's son, Jake, sitting in the groomer for the ski area operations program, that red machine there that costs a lot of money. So that was a cool opportunity just to expose students to some of the different programs. This is a slide that I just found recently that I thought was a good reminder for all of us about why we do concurrent enrollment and the long-term implications when students choose to participate in those. So I'm just going to let that sit there, take a moment and read those 4 bullets I think are noteworthy. This is from a study from DU from about 2.5 years ago, I believe. Everybody get a chance to look at that? And the last thing I'll mention is every year CMC chooses what we call a common reader that we select for the entire college footprint. And each year the theme is different. There have been years when the theme was around issues of environmental justice or mass incarceration. This year's theme is around being good citizens and in the conversation around civility, particularly in the 2024 election year. And every year I reach out to a few teachers at the high school for whom that text might be relevant. And I haven't ever had any takers, but this year I had both Anderson Horn and Heath, what's Heath's last name? Ellis, take me up on this. So they are both incorporating this book into their classes this spring. And this particular common reader, I think, is going to be a little more momentous in terms of the number of things that we're going to do. So we've got a virtual event with the author and hopefully, fingers crossed, one of the big names from NPR later this month. And we're hosting that right in the middle of the day. So I'm kind of hoping that Anderson and Heath will bring their students over and we'll do a watch party. And then there's going to be a number of events taking place over the course of the next 6 months. Hopefully an in-person event with Richard Haas sometime this spring. Whether we get one in Salida or not is to be seen. But it was exciting to me to finally feel like we got a little bit of traction and some interest from some high school teachers and something that was relevant to their coursework. So, and I brought 2 copies of the book. So if any of you want a copy, let me know, and I'm happy to hand one off to you. And if more than 2 of you want one, I've got lots more at the office. So. What questions do you all have for us? You want to know about? Ben, you look like you have a question. What's that? Okay.
Another one that funding opportunity that's come to be, which isn't this team because there's multiple teams and CMCs through the opportunity grant. Suggesting you're trying to work with that team. That's going to provide stipend money for anybody who's working in the industry of education. So it can be from a student. We're trying to figure out the details now. So say a paraprofessional or somebody else who's trying to shift, whether they're doing alternative licensure, they're doing a college degree. Basically, if they're participating, they can work, get paid, and get their education stuff. So we're trying to brainstorm, and that would be at all ages from early childhood into that. I just want to mention, you mentioned a couple grants here. This is the beauty of having a partner like CMC is we can work together, and that allows us to access money we wouldn't be able to access on our own. And so I think it's a really important part, the way that partnership benefits everybody. So. Can we get to that slide where we saw all
the concurrent enrollment stuff.
Can we go back to that one?
Well, and I just wanted to ask too, like you gave the concurrent enrollment numbers, but how many students did internships or are doing internships?
This coming semester is the biggest semester we've had. He has 40 students enrolled right now. He's historically been hovering in the 25 to 30 range. So we'll see how managing.
Yeah, and do you feel like there's a max for our community with businesses and whatnot of how many kids that can grow to?
We haven't hit it yet, but I think we're getting pretty close. I think just Fred's ability to manage the unique students and helping partner them with organizations. Sometimes they get fired, and then you have to maybe help partner them with a different organization. That happened last semester. So
we're over 110 of our local businesses participating though.
Yeah.
Which is important when they're paying that lion's share of the taxes to be able to take responsibility for the workforce development, but also be benefited and participate. So.
One of my favorite parts of that, Mandy, is Fred at least once a week comes into my office, sometimes multiple times, and he's like, I have a student that wants to do this. And it's something we don't have anybody that we know of that's in that field. And so then we start picking up the phone and calling people and brainstorm. And sometimes we do really interesting, weird, creative things where we match them up with 3 different employers and they do 5 weeks and 5 weeks and 5 weeks. Cooper Hodge is a great example. He was interested did a film, and we did 3 different sort of distinct employers. One that was like all about editing, one that was all about audio, and one that was all about something else.
Awesome. Thank you guys for your time tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
For all of you coming in now late, dinner's for everybody. So if you're hungry, grab some food. Thank you all for spending some time with us tonight. Turning over Mr. Hull.
What's that? Sure. Yeah. You want to frame it up? Yeah. Roll.
Roll.
Correct. So, Salida High School students are here to speak with board members tonight, and really appreciate all you guys being here. Let's give you a round of applause. Thank you. So what's going to happen is similar to last year. Is we'll break up groups of kids here, and then have 2 board members, I guess, per table. Does that sound good? So we have 1, 2. Let's break up into board tables right now. So there's 4 or 5 people in each table. 4 or 5 seats in each table. So while Jesse's doing this, he's going to give you guys kind of the set questions that I already sent out. And you're in that flex space. So you ask questions of the students, anything you'd like to talk about. And we want to be able to come back afterwards and share what we heard and kind of synthesize some of that. So the more we stay in that range of questions, we're probably going to have an easier synthesis conversation at the end. The students are just volunteering here tonight. And so I know that the team has tried to get an array of students. So we're not looking at the kind of the same profile of the student. And so that's kind of where we got. Jesse, anything else you want to add? So obviously, these questions you can stick on the script or you can go off the script. So we will kind of pace you, Jesse or I or Abigail, of like, hey, let's move on to the next conversation, or you have this much time left, so you don't get stuck in one conversation. We're going to give it about 30 minutes, and if it's one of those things where we need to take longer, we obviously can. This is a great night. And obviously do your best to make sure you call out students into the quiet ones so we don't miss their voices in the conversation as well. Anything else? So just pick some tables. We've got 4 up there, and you guys know how to spread yourselves about. And there is more food. They will not want to hear. Hey guys. I'm fish. Are you being honest? I have one already, so it's fun.
Nobody even knew I said that. So, Jesse, take it away.
Well, I'd be curious to hear some of that feedback about areas of growth and areas of strength. But we'd like to hear what the students said.
I mean, I think the thing I was most impressed by is asking them like their favorite learning experience so far this year, or just sort of experiences in general. And they all just kept talking about, I mean, they all listed very specific classes, but then they all said because that teacher connected so well, that teacher cared about me. And then the other thing, like asking if they had a trusted adult in the building, they said that all of their teachers were trusted adults. So they said it doesn't matter. I wouldn't necessarily go to my advisor, but I would go to any teacher that I've had a class with in the building. So I thought that was very impressive.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, and I mean Jack Landry, he's a senior, so he's been around for a while, and he was like, our teachers are absolutely top notch. The way they connect with their students is phenomenal. So great job, teachers.
Can I add something to that? Can I jump in on this deal?
Absolutely.
Can you hear me? So I found it super interesting that the students had so many questions and true interest, I thought, about what the board does. Like they just kept asking Mandy questions. And I think, Mandy, you can tell me if I'm wrong because I couldn't see you guys, but I felt like they truly were interested in what we do and what part they could maybe have in the process.
Yeah, no, they were super interested. And like I had mentioned that at CASB, we had our two students, Zeke and Axel, and they had brought up having more student voice on the board or connection to the board. And I asked my table what they thought about that. And they were all like, yeah, that would be great. We would love to. And Cole, he's a freshman. He goes, so is this something I get to do every year? Do I get to come to this every year? Is this only once a year? Or is this like several times a year? And I was like, well, I think if you're really that interested, then you could probably talk to Mr. Hull and Ms. Cooksey about coming back.
You're welcome to come to every meeting.
Yeah, but they were super curious and super interested, and I think they're all interested in having more of a voice and connection to the board.
I was going to piggyback earlier on what you said about them having a trusted adult. I asked them to differentiate between a trusted adult socially and or one academically, and they were unanimous that they had multiple adults in every category.
Yeah, it seemed like they did have concerns that some students who aren't as outgoing, aren't in extracurriculars, aren't in sports, wouldn't necessarily have that person, and that it might take someone reaching out more to them.
Yeah.
One thing I took away from it is just all the kids I sat with had a really positive sense of community. That they felt, and one in particular had a good perspective because he just started last semester. He's been at two other high schools, one in Colorado that was about 1/10 the size, and then one that was in Utah that was like 2,000 kids. So had a great perspective, and he feels like this high school is considerably more supportive in terms of adults reaching out to him that he needs help. He said the counselors have been great, helping him work through things, and they all said that, and this may be very specific to the kids, but they didn't see a lot of bullying that they perceived going on. So yeah, just they all, which again I think is a testament to the teachers and the staff for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess moving on to kind of another, like asking them about what they would change at the high school. Most all of them said they actually wouldn't really change anything, that they couldn't think of anything, that they think the high school's great. The one thing is advisory is always kind of the topic. And one of the students even said, like, we brought you concerns last year that advisory wasn't consistent, didn't help enough with career planning. We didn't really like the SEL stuff. We told you we wanted it to be more consistent and equitable and fair and whatever. And now you guys changed stuff, and now we don't like it. Right. So he was like, I recognize that we asked you to fix stuff, you fixed it, and now we're complaining about what you did that we asked you to do.
Wow.
But also just sort of saying that they feel like some of the Naviance Wayfinder is a little bit of busy work, that advisory doesn't feel like it should be a class that they could have a B in or have homework over break. Okay, so maybe that's just one student that struggled with that. But then also feeling like they would like it to be a little more communal with some of those activities. If there was a way to do Wayfinder and Naviance sort of as group games or together versus individually just on their computers, they would appreciate that more.
Yeah, I kind of got our group, that Wayfinder is pointless busy work. That they already have the counselors for social emotional needs, that they're really not getting that, most of them from their advisors. And the capstone, like having no idea what that is, and just getting a handout second semester of senior year of like, figure it out, is kind of, that's how I
Absolutely.
took that.
Yeah, what we're doing well or what we would change. There was the debate between block versus not. Like some liked, some didn't. So I think that's, and to me, it seemed more like the academic part wanted block, the different pathway didn't want block.
Right.
So, but I think to tag on the advisory comments, everything you said was basically what we heard at our table, and it's a great 30 minutes to do nothing and just debrief. So like, might as well just call it an off hour to some extent. Is how someone basically phrased it. And then the capstone piece. I think there was like we don't even know what we're doing with the capstone. Like, it'd be really great to get exposure to that kind of junior year at some point versus senior year. So.
Oh, yeah, and ours, said that the CMC and internship class is huge, and that they do feel for a small town that they have a lot more options because of that.
Although I think there was some confusion on even what they were doing with CMC. Like they enrolled in classes, but didn't necessarily maybe understand how many hours they had, or even how many of the classes that they had taken were actual CMC classes.
And
That
not
was
a clear
kind of
path.
unclear.
Not
Definitely
knowing
not that.
what they would graduate with. Because Mr. Waddell asked that directly, how many credits will you finish with? And it was definitely like no idea.
Yeah, and I would phrase it as like cascading information of, there seemed to just be a general, like, still not the best understanding of like what opportunities that you could take with CMC through some of the concurrent enrollment stuff or an internship program or things like that. It was kind of just like, and maybe it was just individual students versus how we're doing things, but it seemed to be they need more guidance and understanding of like, what do I need to do to get from A to B versus just like taking the classes that are they're available for me.
We did have one student who basically said, if you are self-driven or if you will advocate for yourself, you'll find out exactly what you can do and what you need. And if you don't, it'll be what you make it.
Some of the things that I heard in terms of what needed to be changed or could be changed or suggestions for improving, or certainly things that we're all aware of, is more classes, more elective classes.
Content, yeah.
Something we always struggle with and try to reach that balance with. I certainly heard that. I heard vaping in the bathroom, ironically,
Quite a bit.
twice, which I've also heard from my daughter. Is out of control, and one girl said she just doesn't even go to the bathroom anymore. So I'm sure you guys are well aware.
It's a struggle.
Well aware of the issue.
Front page Tenderfoot News about the bathroom. Oh yeah. I think that I don't think there's anything new.
But I do
on
want to throw in
last
that those are great kids and really willing to be open and honest. It's pretty impressive.
I guess I would just add that being able to see some of the students who I haven't really interacted with since they were in 7th or 8th grade is pretty impressive to see how the staff at the high school is working with them and how well they articulate kind of where they are and what's working and what's not. So that I think it's easy sometimes to find things to fix and find things to tweak. But I think it's also fairly important to find the things that actually are working and the things that we're doing in the district at one table. I was very proud of all of those guys. And they were different walks of life, of student life.
Well, and I think overall, like my senior in the group mentioned several times that he feels like the concerns that have been brought up over the last few years have been addressed. And he feels like he definitely notices that when there's problems and concerns that they're taken care of. He really respects the leadership at the high school right now. And definitely feels like with concurrent enrollment and CMC and all the pathways and new stuff with counselors trying to get kids more like, can you articulate your plan, that he sees that growing and changing, and it's still maybe in a little bit of an infant stage, but he definitely sees growth and improvement with all of that. So moving in the right direction.
Jesse, you have any other questions that you want answered?
No, it's a pretty good snapshot of the way I feel right now. I'd say, the largest area of growth for us right now is kiddos being able to articulate their pathway, or what we're calling a learning community. And advisory is a key component to that. And it's still in its infancy. It's taking a lot of work to change the culture with staff and students for everyone to have a good understanding of what advisory is and how valuable it is. And I can tell you, different kids have different experiences, right, with it, and some teachers are better than other teachers in articulating that pathway for kids, and that's one of our large growth areas is just getting everybody rowing in the same direction, so we can talk to every single kid their senior year and they know what their purpose is. It's taken a while. It's not going to happen overnight. Naviance and Wayfinder are powerful tools. We're still getting used to using them. Naviance, we're only at the tip of the iceberg with that as what it can do. We spent quite a while over the summer creating a scope and sequence for advisory and really working on making it relevant for kids. So.
I also recognize that as a high schooler, I would have thought Naviance and Wayfinder were an extraordinary waste of time.
Totally.
But
Yeah.
chances are I learned that I shouldn't be a potter. I should maybe be a scientist along the way. I get that it's coming through a fascinating filter.
Yeah. It's interesting the conversations I have at home with my junior, that advisory. And, after you talk to them and explain the purpose over and over again, finally it starts to hit home. But it takes a while.
Well, and hopefully over time there can be more staff buy-in, because it seems pretty obvious to the kids that it widely varies depending on who you get,
Right.
whether it's valuable.
Work in progress. And we're moving in the right direction. So.
I think that sentiment was probably at each table too. Things are improving. So It's good to hear.
Good.
Let's do it.
Let's move on.
Yeah, kudos to Jesse and the teachers. Was it's awesome to hear how great you guys are doing. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Karen. Even though I have to admit.
I know.
She's a ghost. That's true. That is true.
We need like a microphone.
It gets better.
All right. So I'm a history teacher in my former life. So any opportunity. Oh, sorry. Any opportunity I get, I like to talk a little bit about history. This is your warm up for our presentation. Your bell ringer. Salida then and now. If you looked at that picture in the upper left-hand corner, that is the Salida High School campus in 1910. So the middle picture is Kessner. On the left is the high school. And on the right is the gymnasium. In 1961, the high school, in this picture, burnt down. And that's when they built the previous high school that Joe probably went to. All right.
I think I know who burned down the one in 69.
You are live.
But we've been educating kids for a long time in Salida. Since 1869, we started with 25 kids in a 2-room schoolhouse, and now I'm not sure how many kids we're in the district. 1,300, 402 in the high school. Another tidbit of information: Miss Laura Evans, Madam Laura Evans, was pretty important business owner in Salida up until about 1950. And she is the reason we're purple. So in the Great Depression, Miss Laura Evans helped the football team out by buying them football uniforms. She said on one condition, you're purple. So that's why we're purple now. We look a little bit different now, still in the business of educating kids. Sparty's been around since 1929. So just a little bit of history. There's our unified bowling team that qualified for state this year. First time ever. Pretty exciting. Baba's Magical Christmas, our student council helped out. I believe it was 44 kiddos with Christmas presents right before break. DESCON, that's the Thespian Conference in Denver. As you know, we have a great theater group. Bedtime Stories in the fall, and the musical, oh my God, I'm spacing. Say Anything is the musical this spring. Miss Frazie's class, that's the Surrealistic Hand Project. Some pretty cool art. Every Thursday in advisory, we have Club Day. This is down at Salida Boulder, where we have a group of kiddos go down at lunchtime in advisory every Thursday and climb. And this happened in September, College Day. We had 21 colleges come to the high school, and a bunch of our kiddos had really good conversations with higher ed. So they look pretty happy there. So what guides us? I say this over and over again to every person I get a chance to say it to. Our mission is we take care of kids, academically, socially, emotionally, and physically. And as you can tell from talking to our kiddos, they feel taken care of. That's probably one of our greatest strengths is student connectedness. Envision, right? It's a work on progress. It's a work in progress. We will know all students by name, need, and strength. And all students will be able to verbalize and articulate a post-secondary pathway. We're getting there. Advisory is a key component to that. Relationships, student connectedness, key components to what we're doing. Building goals, these are the same as last year. Strengthen culture and leadership density, strengthen communication, strengthen systems which support student growth and well-being. We have an action plan with a number of action steps under each one of these goals. Actually, tomorrow in our staff meeting, we'll go through the action steps and audit where we're at on each action step, whether it's red, green, or yellow. So. New staff. As I was walking around, I heard some of these names float out of kiddos' mouths. Lou Gwaltney from Denver Public Schools, really experienced social studies teacher, has taken the lead for us in professional learning communities, has been helping with some scheduling stuff, and is really a master in curriculum design. So has been a really valuable addition. Ben Sanchez, second career, was a harbor master prior to this, graduate of the Merchant Marine Academy. He's a wrestling coach, he's a football coach, and he's really connecting well with students in class. Noah Flores, brand new guy. Now he's probably 22, 23 years old. Kids love him. He's doing a great job in the classroom. And Alejandra Godina, one of our own, former Salida High School student, and now is teaching science for us. So really happy with the new staff we've added on this year. And as you know, it's a challenge finding folks right now. And boy, we really lucked out this year. So new spaces. There's a new counseling center, which we call the Fiveplex. And the vision behind this is all of our academic and social emotional counseling and support is all in the same place. So Mary, Dawn, Jessica Benna, Cassie Stotch from Sol Vista, and Carrie Vignali from CMC are all in the same area to collaborate together and support kiddos. And the old counseling office is now the activities condo where Marco and Cassie are. This frees up the front office more, where we have space now to have meetings with parents. We have space for kids to have a timeout, or if they need some type of support. So it's worked out pretty well. Oh yeah, and the SRO is in the front office now too. So physical space matters, and it feels a lot more functional in this design than it did before. So. Collaborative time. This was one of the big changes this year. right? And we put a lot of work into this last year. Collaborative time, teachers have 160 minutes a week of collaborative time. Half of that is in multi-systems of support, and half of it is in vertical teams, or what we call professional learning communities. MTSS, we kind of changed it up. Mid-fall semester, we changed the design a little bit based on some feedback from teachers. And right now, what we have is a 4-week cycle for MTSS. So week 1, which starts tomorrow, is professional development. Teachers are trained in tier 1 support. Yes. Both. Yep. So MTSS is both academic and social emotional support. So on week 1, they meet as a group for 60 minutes, and that's a PD day. Week 2 is a workshop, and this is where you actually identify students within your class and determine interventions for those students. And week 3 and week 4 are individual meetings where teachers sit down with Cooksey and I, or Jessica Bennett, and walk through the kiddos that they are intervening with to discuss their progress. We piloted this in the weeks from Thanksgiving to Christmas. Teachers are super excited about it. It seems pretty efficient. We're hitting the ground running this semester with that system. Vertical teams. They're meeting by content area for 60 minutes on Tuesdays. Semester 1, we focused on the learning cycle of what to teach. And what teachers did is they reviewed their syllabus. They worked on collective measures of student learning, pacing guides, scope and sequence, common grading practices. So the agenda was pretty tight as far as what they needed to accomplish. Semester 2, it's going to be a little bit looser, and that's where they get into the discussions. How do we know students are learning, right? Drilling down into data and assessments. What's really great to see with the professional learning communities is different departments are kind of going in different directions based on the need of the department. And that's the way professional learning communities should work, is it should be relatively organic and led by the teachers. Again, a work in progress. Professional learning communities take 3 to 5 years to become effective. We're in year 1 right now, right? But we're off to a good start. Questions on that? That's a big one. Feedback from the teachers. They really appreciate the time to collaborate with their colleagues. They're struggling a little bit with a loss of some instructional plan time, but understand the value of MTSS and the value of professional learning communities. And, I can guarantee over time what's going to happen is that will help folks plan once those are running effectively. Uh-oh, what happened? There it goes. Advisory. Jess, you're up.
I'll take the mic. We've already talked about this a fair amount tonight. I appreciate the feedback to hear students and share their opinions with you all. I've heard a variety of different perspectives from staff and students, some saying they love the changes, advisory is their favorite class, and others sharing exactly the same kind of feedback you guys have. And So I anticipate this will continue to be a hot topic and an area of growth. And I think we're making, we're moving in the right direction. I also feel like I heard comments about wanting guidance about pathways and plans. And this is our place, one of our places within the school day to really devote to that. So that feels like the next step to build that as a stronger part of advisory. But the way it's structured right now, we do more whole class lessons on Mondays, and that focuses on things like ICAP, which is also synonymous with capstone, and either group projects or conversations or activities, and we use Naviance and Wayfinder for those. Then Mondays and Tuesdays, we have the individual student check-ins, and that's an opportunity for the advisor to sit down for just a couple of minutes and have a personal conversation with each student in their advisory while the other students are working on individual work. And that might be follow-up from Naviance, or usually it's from Naviance, but sometimes Wayfinder, or they could be doing homework or other tasks during that time. And then Thursdays are that club time, and Thursdays are hit. Students get to self-select what club that they want to be in, and staff get to lead a club that they are interested in and passionate about. So that's that. And I just want to take a moment to celebrate some of our community partnerships. Everyone at the high school works very hard to make things the best that they can be, and we are better when we access our resources and use our partners. And obviously Colorado Mountain College is a huge partner for us. You heard a lot about them tonight. We also have the partnership with our SRO and Salida PD. We have our in-house Sol Vista staff doing school-based services, as well as other services that we commonly access through that organization. Booster Club, FYI, we have our DHS liaison that works a lot at the high school, and lots of other community partnerships too, restorative justice. There's kind of a long list, but just wanted to take a moment to celebrate some of those.
And I would add, Salida PD, Sol Vista, DHS, daily conversations with these groups, support kids, just like daily piece. We're working with one kid right now, doing student support we also do is knowledge use. She can walk the line between police officer and that's really unique to find a person like that. A lot of this just really appreciate the work she does.
Okay. Well, we talked a lot about this tonight, and it was really fun hearing some of your comments because I'm like, ooh, that's in the slide. Ooh, that's in the slide. So connection is huge for everything, for your future, for your well-being, all parts of who you are, who these students are. And so we really have a heavy focus on that, but we also got to thinking about, well, we know where we want to go, but where are we now? So we gave some surveys. In September, we sent a student survey out to the entire student body, and 84% of 9th through 12th graders responded to the survey, which was really good. It was in September. They're just getting back to school, and it asked everything from, what are your interests and hobbies? What clubs and activities do you like to do? What are your future plans? If you know right now, do you have a connection with someone in the building? And if so, who? And 80% of those kids could identify they have a connection with an adult in the building. And that's even freshmen. And many of them did select their advisor as that person that they can go to, that they, if any kind of, we weren't specific on the problem, but you've got a person that you can go to. And I thought that's really, both of those are that's worth celebrating. So we're starting in a really good place. Then we thought, well, let's ask staff. How are the staff feeling about the connection with students? And the first time we did it, we created this big poster board and every student's name was listed. And we gave staff stickers and said, okay, go put stickers next to the kid that you have a connection with. And we limited the number of stickers at first. Then we realized we can't do that. We don't want to limit. You can only pick 10 kids you're connected with. So we decided to scrap that and we sent a survey to staff and we listed every student in the building on that survey. And just about every staff, everyone in the building, paras, custodians, it was sent to everyone. We asked them to rank their connectedness with students, go through each kid. They were required to answer for each kid. 0 being I have no connection, 2, 3 being this student has actually sought me out. So really giving us an idea of how is our staff feeling. And we did not have one student that had a 0. I think that's incredible. Now we did have 15% that had more of a lower connection. When you looked at that scale from no connection at all to they've come to me, there's a lot in between that. And we have 15% that we identified that are lower. So then that's kind of our target audience. That's what can we do to continue fostering what we're doing, but also specifically reach out to some of those students who maybe didn't have that connection. A vast majority of that 15% were freshmen. And the staff survey was done in November. And so we're still getting to know the students. And but I think overall that still is a huge celebration and lets us know again, where are we at right now so that we can start planning on where do we want to go? Where do we fill the holes that we may have? So again, next steps, celebrate what we're doing because we're doing some great things and kids have people to talk to and teachers are connecting with them, which is huge. I think it was awesome that so many 9th graders identified a connected adult after just a few weeks of school. That was, again, sent out in September. And I really think it's important to note that their advisor, many of them, that's who their point person was, that if they needed to, they could go at least talk to that person. So advisory's good. I mean, it's doing what it's supposed to do from the kid's perspective, which is good. It's great. And then the next step, intentionally connecting with the students that maybe have a low connection. What things building wide in our culture can we do better? How do we reach some of those students that aren't feeling that and that staff are not connecting with either? That's kind of where we're at right now. On an anecdotal note, this was really pretty neat. Just today, Marco had a situation with an athlete and kind of trying to figure out how do we get support for this student and where do you start? Well, he pulled up the survey and he went to see who did this student list as their person. He went and talked to that person and said, keep an eye out for this kid. You may want to talk with them today. And it was just like, wow, not only are we getting the data to know where we're at, but we're actually using these results to be able to connect when a situation might come up. So it was that was pretty cool to see that happen.
Okay, individual plans. So part of what we're doing in advisory with Naviance and having students do interest inventories and group activities and some of the lessons through Wayfinder and Naviance is just really learning about themselves. And so that all contributes to having their individual plan for their future. Right now, Mary and I are working on, with juniors and seniors, we have lots of individual meetings with students. But then those 9th and 10th graders are getting more of the connection through their advisory and through those activities in advisory. We will be having, as soon as the grades roll from the first semester, we'll have students looking at their transcripts and looking at graduation requirements and seeing how all of that plays into what comes next for them and what the class options are for next year. And, Mary and I will be visiting with all the classes to talk to kids about that too, making sure kids are on track or if they're,
missing a class or need to make up a credit, that we're having a plan in place for that. I think the Wayfinder activities, that some of the comments that we've heard tonight, I think some of the activities are maybe a short video, and then students are working independently on a reflection, and then others are whole class, almost like team building or community building activities. And I think that's the really important stuff that we're seeing for 9th and 10th grade especially. So as we continue to develop the advisory curriculum, and we look at what are our goals for kids to have an individual in their individual plans, that's where we'll be developing more goal-focused lesson plans, and really looking at how all of those lessons tie into an individual plan for them for their future. We know that we want to increase post-secondary enrollment and having students actually follow through with those plans after high school. And so this is part of the building block for that. We'll be starting course registration soon. We have February as our time to really implement a lot of the lesson delivery, and once we figure out what courses are offered exactly next year and everything. So that's kind of next on our list. Am I missing anything?
Definitely, I think reiterating that this advisory program is very much a continual work in progress. That we're on version 1.0, and that we're going to be able to continue to tweak and adjust and make it better as we go. But I think we are off to it's overwhelming and exciting at the same time.
So I love these numbers up here, because we know research says, right, that students that are involved in extracurriculars are more successful. And if you look, our numbers continue to go up each year. And this is a lot of the work our staff has done, a lot of the work Marco has done, in connecting with students and getting them out for different activities. We don't have the performing arts up there, which we should, and there's another group of kiddos that are not included in these numbers. So each year they go up.
Do you
Yes.
know approximately if you added in performing arts kids, like how close you would get to the total number of kids in the high school?
Yeah, and Mandy, that 306 students could be multiple sport athletes, right?
So that's not necessarily 300.
That's not necessarily 306 students. Yeah, different kids. But 306 kids that are involved in stuff, right, in different seasons. I would say in the performing arts, there's probably another 40 at least.
And then once you added choir and band, and those are tricky when you think about how many conference they are kids that students take during the school day. They also require a lot of extracurricular time. We have, I think, 30 kids in the choir, 30 kids in the band. So substantial.
Learning communities. This is, a lot of people use the word pathways. We're switching it up. We're going to call it learning communities. Pathways just seems so rigid to me, right? And I don't want high school to be rigid for a kid, right? I want them to belong to a community of learning, right? And what we're working on right now, Mary, Dawn, Cooksey, myself, is creating these learning communities where each learning community has a scope and sequence, right, of classes to take. So health sciences, STEM, skilled trades, human services, arts and humanities, and business. All right. So if you're interested in that content area, there's a group of courses that you can take, and it's fluid, right? So business and marketing, some of those same courses could apply to arts and humanities or human services, right? But the purpose is every kiddo has an interest, right? And can pursue that interest and be able to articulate what they're doing to pursue that interest. Excuse me. So that's in development. Graduation requirements. Most of you know we went from 24 credits to 28 credits. So sophomores this year need to graduate with 28 credits. The great thing about this is with that requirement, you as a Board of Education approve the flexibility in graduation requirements. So with a higher number of credits, kids also have a higher number of elective credits that they can determine what their learning community is, right? And pursue that interest. And, you know, this is the work that's going on in advisory and the work that Dawn and Mary are doing with each individual kid to pull out what their interest is and what classes match that interest. Some new courses. 23-24 school year. You see we have a number of them. Intro to Law. You've probably heard some chat around that. That's Anderson Horn. Kids seem to really like it. I really like it. Great conversations going on in there. English 1 and 2 accelerated for some of our accelerated learners. We have health now and are piloting a curriculum. Thankfully, it kind of scared me last year when I showed up and realized we didn't have a health class. So piloting health right now. Public speaking with Jody DeMoss, and history through film and literature with Miss Amy Moore. Upcoming, Dr. Hill, personal finance. Senior seminar, which senior seminar is basically, you know, how you're a good citizen, how to engage in civil discourse, right? How to have a logical conversation with somebody. So that will be senior seminar. And Spanish, we're looking to add some Spanish, hopefully. All right. Schedule. I heard a lot of kiddos talking about how they like the block, right? And we're looking right now at if the 4x4 block is best for kids. There are some large concerns with the 4x4 block. One is the length of the class, 100 minutes long, right? Is a long time for a freshman, a 14-year-old boy or girl to sit in algebra for 100 minutes is tough every single day, right? Also a concern, you could take math your freshman year of the fall semester and not take math again for another year. Very difficult to take that much of a lapse and jump back into a math class. So what we did fall semester, we formed a committee of staff members to look if the 4x4 block is what's best for kids. We looked at data to see if there's any learning loss, which there is some, right? And kind of looked at some other schedules that may be more effective for student learning. This semester, we're going to continue to explore that by talking to staff and then talking to different stakeholder groups. No decision's been made yet, right? We could stay with the 4x4 block next year, or we could possibly go to a different schedule. So that's kind of where we are in the process. Cooksey, the data person.
So here is our testing data. Y'all have seen this data. I'm sure it has been presented to you at some point this year. But this is coming from our April 2023 College Board test. Our 9th graders take the PSAT 9, 10th graders take the PSAT 10, 11th graders take the SAT, and that is college reportable. They can use that score to send to colleges as their actual SAT score. And if you look through at those numbers, you'll see across the board we are above state and national averages. The EBRW stands for evidence-based reading and writing. So think of that as our English score. Math is obviously our math score. So our students are doing great. You've heard this for a decade now. Our students are excellent. They're good test takers. Looking at our overall score, there are some areas of growth for us as a school. The College Board, and most of you have students at the high school right now, so you're aware the College Board has transitioned to entirely digital tests. That is a transition not just in modality, but it's also a transition in some ways of the length of test and the way that the test is offered. So while previously there was an English section, or a reading section, an English section, and then 2 math sections. One of the math sections used to have no calculator. Now every section requires or allows a calculator, and it's built into the software. Another major change is that the test is given in 2 chunks for math and 2 chunks for English. The first chunk is the same for all students, and then the second chunk differentiates based on how students do on the first chunk to try to really get the specific student's score. So there's a lot that is new and different in the way the test feels for how students take, the way the test is administered. If you have worked in education, you've probably administered a standardized test. You know that there's a lot of talking and saying 5 minutes remaining, 1 minute remaining, students put your pencils down. That doesn't exist anymore. The computer does all of that. It's a really whole new world for teachers and staff that we're having to get accustomed to. So that's the biggest transition. So we've started adding in a fall test, mostly to test to help our students and staff learn. And then we'll see again in the spring whether that was successful and if we feel more prepared. I know as test coordinator, I feel infinitely more prepared because I was able to practice on that fall test. We're looking at changing our support for students with accommodations for the College Board tests. College Board tests have very specific requirements for accommodations. We can't be creative. A student can't use headphones with white noise because they have ADHD and get distracted. College Board doesn't allow that, and they are very, very strict as to what they allow and what they do not. A lot of the accommodations that they will offer is extended time. And if you're a 14-year-old boy with ADHD who doesn't like testing with time and a half is a cruel and unusual punishment where you are not allowed to leave the test room early and you must sit there in silence for an extra hour of your day. So we're looking at the ways and how we can be creative and work within the bounds of the College Board to create testing environments that are better for kids and maybe use accommodations that make a lot more sense. Within our vertical teams, particularly our math and English team, are looking to how we can use some of this data as well as our NWEA data for data-driven instruction as well. So that is a goal starting this spring, is that we'll start to break down some of that data and use it for data-driven instruction. So this is the College Board testing.
I'd say one piece to add to, which is a good piece, is some of the things that we're doing to address that is special reviews, right? Getting teams together to talk about instruction, right? Also, co-curricular systems of school, addressing specific students, and intervening with tier one, tier two. I'm confident that once these systems are rolling, we're going to see really but right now, flat. And to me, that's unacceptable, right? That's complacency. We're good, but we want to get better. And that's specifically to
This is so at the high school level, we only test one CMAS test. It's 11th grade science. So for most of our students, I get to proudly say that this is the last standardized test they'll ever take. Is our group of 11th graders take that 11th grade science test, and I get to tell them they get to say goodbye to standardized testing after that moment. You can see, again, our students are performing higher than students around the state. When you break down that data, we have a relative strength around science and engineering practices. Our students are really good at applying what they learn, and a relative weakness around physical science. I think some of that is they take that course as a freshman, so it's been a long time since they've received some of that information. But I know that that's something our science class is kind of looking, or science teachers are looking into. And then finally, just for comparison across school levels, because every single school does the NWEA, we also have students in math and English classes take the NWEA MAP test at the beginning of the course and at the end of the course. So this is our achievement data from the last May for the students who took it. And you can see we have a pretty traditional bell curve across the board. The top bit is math, the bottom is language usage. In order to not overtest our students, we've chosen to test them in language uses as opposed to reading. This is more of a grammar test. And this is probably about a quarter of our students took this specific test in May, but we test almost every single student throughout the year. This is one of the issues with the 4x4 block is it's really hard to test every single student at the same time because they might not be in a math class at the same time.
Okay, so growth is our one area of growth. Advisory is another area of growth. This is our third big area of growth, matriculation rate. All right, and right now we're right around 50%. All right, our we need to go up, right? And that's why things like advisory, concurrent enrollment, ensuring that every single kid has a purpose are the things that we're addressing to make that matriculation rate go up. I'm confident that it is going to go up. It went up slightly this year from last year, but it's a large area of growth for us, right? Every single kid should have a purpose when they leave the high school, whether that's the military, whether that's a vocational program, or whether that's a 2 or 4 year school. Because at 50%, I'm sure some of those kiddos have a goal and objective that are in that other 50%, but we need to get that number higher. Yes. Yes, it does. Yeah. I thought it did. Yeah. Trades. Yeah. So like if you were going to like a Wyoming, Oh yeah. Although did we have anybody go last year? I don't think we did. We didn't have anybody in the military last year. This is just a piece of information for you where our kids are going that are going to four-year schools. You see the top is UCCS and Colorado State and Fort Lewis. Just interesting data. What's that, Jen? How many years? Oh yeah, yeah. I'm not sure how many years that is. Yeah. Yeah. And graduation rate for a school our size, you see, we are pretty high. Only have a few schools above us, right, in the state, which is great. What's the difference between graduation rate and completion rate? Completion rate is kids that didn't graduate on time and went back and completed at a later date. So we're getting them through. Now the big piece is getting them through with purpose, right? And we have a lot of things in place that's going to make that happen. So just to conclude, you know, the staff we have at the high school, I think you heard today, are doing tremendous work. We have a great group of teachers at the high school working their butts off, and really appreciate the work they do. The other thing is Cooksey, Dawn, Mary, Jessica Benna, Marco. Wow, what a great team we have at the high school. I feel incredibly fortunate to be at the high school and work with the people I work with. And you know, everybody has the right mission in mind to take care of kids. And the last thing I would say, you know, I've been around education for a long time, and to have a board like this is amazing. Thank you for the work you're doing. And it's not this way in many places in the state. And I feel truly supported by you all. And, you know, with that being said, Will and David are amazing to work for too. So I just feel very fortunate and lucky to be part of this district, and thank you all. So that's all I have. Questions?
I just have a couple, and
I
they're
know you
directed
do,
towards
Jody.
the dream team. I have really limited my word count so that I can use them all right here. Right here. So this is just for the dream team. So I hear Dawn and Mary talking about you're getting ready to send out surveys about what the classes want and to make the schedule, but the committee is still working on should you change from a block to a modified block or something else.
Mm-hmm.
So aren't those butting those up?
Right, yes.
Okay.
So we need that before we can do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And you guys, you as a committee are on track.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay, that's all. I was just worried about that.
Yeah, it's tight. We'll get it
But
done.
you got it. Okay. And then the second question is, you had it up there on. You had new courses. You said Spanish. Now, is that CMC Spanish class that Rob also had on his?
More Spanish.
More Spanish. Explain that to me.
We need another half FTE of Spanish to get kids through.
Okay. Now, so I was looking at it last year, and I even took out the AP numbers, and the class average was 17 across middle school and high school. I'm just wondering what changed. Why do you need that? Teach me.
So what's happening right now is we have a ton of Spanish 1 sections, right?
Mhm.
With not enough Spanish 3 and Spanish 4 sections. So we have kids that are bottlenecked,
I see.
right?
And okay, and you don't, and you can't increase the class size.
Class sizes are full.
What are they? May I ask?
Uh,
Okay.
yeah. So we need another half Spanish teacher.
Okay, and it sounds like
And-
that's your
and, you
top
know,
priority.
With
Just
with
looking
the,
at finances, so make sure you have a backup plan.
for sure.
Okay.
I get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Well, and I mean, kind of piggybacking off of that. So was CMC saying that Renee Frizzy will be credentialed to teach like 3 and 4 through then?
She will be, but if we can't have her do it during the school day with the amount of Spanish 1 that we need her to teach.
But will she have enough FTE through them to free up FTE for
You're going to see that
Us?
request when we bring in the budget process. You can expect that request
okay.
because that's going to be the answer to the question. Because if the answer is we can't afford it or we don't think it's the best place to invest your money, then you're going to have to trim those hopes.
Well, and the tough thing too is our graduation requirements. We're requiring Spanish 3. Yeah. Yeah. So, which is a great thing. You know, I just spent some time in Mexico. Spanish is valuable. Donde la playa? You know?
I don't want to take too much time, but I just want to say thanks from the bottom of my heart. This board and so many people invested so many years to hear what we just heard tonight. There's just a lot of people who aren't sitting here who invested a lot of pain and blood into saying we need to do better, and just even to hear the goals, to see the data, just the staff. You know, obviously Jesse, you and your team, but the whole staff just done an amazing job. You know, and we talk as board members, we should say it's by name, by need, and which kid. And that's what we heard tonight was we're trying to figure out if every kid is learning, if every kid is connected. Kids don't learn if they're not connected. And so it's just, I want to say thanks from the bottom of my heart to all of you guys because it's a heavy lift and you guys are on the right path. I know you're not going to get there, but you never get there, so to speak. You keep putting the things in place to make the growth. And I'm super thankful for everything you guys were able to share tonight.
Well, and you know, the last thing is we're having fun doing it. We all like each other, and we're having fun. So.
I will echo David's comments. It's been 6 years for me of keep improving, and we're definitely seeing more of the results now. So it's great. So thank you guys, and thank you guys for your time and coordinating the kids and all the things. So it was a great night. David, we'll move on. David, do you have much to update for district? Or
I got,
We
one
got
or
back
two
yesterday.
things. Yes, we just got back. So it's really like we've only had a week off from meetings. I do just want to take a moment just to pause. Maybe it's a moment of silence. We lost another alumni yesterday who's recently still pretty young, pretty close to the staff. We lost a couple right before break, just alumni. We've had a lot of death and a lot of tragedy, and I just want to name that it's hard. It's close enough to our kids that it does influence and impact some of our kids. So just want to name it, and just say that also happened during the holidays. Why a lot of good stuff was happening. A lot of other families and people near those families are trying to process all that stuff. So, sobering, but I wanted to make sure I mentioned it because it's out there. The other thing I want to do is Aaron. I want to give the floor to him because I think there's some updates. So this 0% cash loan that's no big deal is an absolute nightmare is actually what it is. Today, I thought we would, you guys are welcome to leave if you want to.
I didn't think we'd have a lot of topics. So.
No, we got some stuff. I let Aaron talk about it, but we spent most of the morning. We were able to be special enough to get the full attention of the state treasurer's office today, all the fiscal agents at CDE, all of the capital lay. So anytime you're getting everyone's full attention, it tells you just about how annoying. So I'll let Aaron speak to it, but I just want to make sure we're clear with the public. Like, this is not a no-brainer effort that the team has to put in to make this happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's not been painless. It's been an interesting 2 months, I guess, trying to get this loan. We're to the point now where we're going to get it, and everything's in place to do it as of today. But there's been a lot of steps to jump through. 2 months ago, they told us we weren't going to have to spend any of our capital reserve cash in order to borrow money. That changed while we were on break. I got an email after they telling us that we had submitted everything that we needed. They said, "Oh, you're going to have to spend down all your capital reserve cash." So came in last week sometime and sent them a new spreadsheet and adjusted as much as I could. And then came in yesterday and said, "Hey, a lot of this money is best money," which we've been told we're not allowed to touch best money for any reason. So what do we do about that? And the two people at the bank that works with the treasurer's office to get us the money disagreed. One said, "Oh, you can't use best money." The other said, "You absolutely have to spend down your best money." And this was yesterday. I think I stopped talking to him about 7 o'clock. And yeah, just a frustrating experience. But so today, me and David called as many people as we could, and many people at CDE disagreed with each other, and some said we could use best, some said we couldn't. The final answer, we finally talked to the lead at Best. We talked to our auditors. We talked to the CDE finance guy, Mark Rydberg, and a couple other people at CDE, and they all agree that we have to spend our best cash. So we're not expending it, but we do have to take that cash out of our capital reserve savings accounts and actually use the cash this month on payroll in order to be able to borrow money. We have to have no cash anywhere before we can borrow money. So we don't have to do any type of resolution for that because we're not expending any money. So you don't have to take any action on that. But just so you know, as of this month, we will have no cash in the bank at all. So, and that includes all the best money, which is like $800,000 worth of best money. So we have to do that. So that is a little bit dicey. So that was a fun day, and there's a lot of disagreement, like I said, but that was kind of the final solution. I feel comfortable telling you that that's what we have to do at this point, and we found that out.
There's some confusion because of all the changes in assessed valuations, and there's a change in law about being required to have capital outlay stuff. And so there's been a couple changes. That's part of what it was. So we get to be the guinea pigs of trying to understand that.
The thing I heard over and over today is you're the first school we've had to deal with this problem, which is interesting to me. So that's what they're telling me. I mean, we've had 24 districts that have had to use this program over the years. They're seeing a lot more districts having to use that this year because of property values. So the auditor today said, "Please keep me updated on how this goes," because I have a feeling we're going to have many more people in this situation, but I've never seen anything like this before. So I do have to, basically there's some work we have to do on the audit, but I've confirmed how to do it with our auditor. Everything's above board. Talked to Andy Stein, who's the head. He is the executive director of capital construction for CDE, and he is the head of Best, and he agrees that you use the Best cash. It has to be repaid by the end of the year in your capital capital projects account. And if you do that, you're not actually spending it, you're just using the cash. So he agreed with it. He said there won't be a problem through Best if we need to apply for an investment.
So I think you just answered my question, but I just want to clarify. Mm-hmm. So we'll be using the reserve amount, but when we get those funds coming in from the property taxes, a portion of that will immediately go back into the reserve account.
It'll first goes to the state, and then everything else goes in. So by the end of the year, all of that money will be back. You'll have your reserves. You'll have your money in your capital reserve account. But I mean, there's risk to that, right? Obviously, but it's where we're at. We don't have enough cash to pay payroll.
So like Aspen and Cherry Creek and these other districts, do they have zero cash in their accounts as well? Like
according to this program, yeah, you're not allowed to carry any cash before you borrow. So I did not know that.
Sense.
Just for Best?
No, I mean, it makes sense. You wouldn't want the government to loan you money while you have money earning interest. You can see the logic behind it.
Yeah, I mean, when they first told us that, I kind of questioned it because I'm sitting there thinking, so you're going to let me make 5% on my $800,000 that I have in the bank while borrowing from you for 0%? That seems like a move that would be hard to justify.
We did it in the 20s.
What's that? So it's logical that they would make us do this.
And
but-
Ben, I think it's a mistake, but I wanted you to just go over the math of like,
Yeah.
let's say we didn't want this loan program. What kind of cash would we have to keep, and why this really is the way we need to go?
Yeah, so I have harder numbers now. It changes every month because another piece of this is every month we have to fill out a spreadsheet that goes through every 10-day period and gives our exact expenditures and our exact revenues. And we have to do that monthly and then send it back to them. And then we send them a draw request that David has to sign, which we're getting ready to do our first draw request. And it tells them when we're going to draw over the next 3 10-day periods. So basically, you're going to be borrowing all the money you need within the next 30 days because we start to get our property taxes the month after that. So it looks like we're going to borrow 1.5 million, about 1.6 million total. That's good. That's less than we expected total over the course of the year. But that's because we're using all of our capital reserve cash. So the thing to keep in mind is we started the year with 2.36 million in our unassigned reserves, or our unassigned fund balance, not reserves, excuse me. And we're still borrowing 1.5 million. Next year, because we have no unassigned fund balance, we're probably going to be looking at borrowing 4 million throughout the course of the year. So in order to not be a part of this loan program, you're going to have 4 to 5 million in cash in unassigned fund balance to start the year. We can't get to that anytime soon, and probably we'll never get to that again.
Nor do we want to.
Nor do we want
Our
to.
philosophy
Yeah,
is-
exactly. That's not the philosophy of the board. So I think we're going to be in this position going forward. I mean, that's just the way it is. But, and additionally, like we're getting more and more locally funded every year. So it's going to continue to be more. There is a percentage that we can borrow, and I'm working with the state right now to figure out exactly what that is. We're nowhere near it, so we're fine. But there may come a point where we do have to say we have to keep X amount of money so that we can't borrow more than we're allowed to, basically. So I will get you that number as soon as I have it and can actually tell you what that means for our district. But yeah, I mean, David asked me today, he said, so does this, all the work you put into this, change your opinion on this interest-free loan? And the problem is I'm with Joe. I don't think I have any desire to keep 5 million in an unassigned fund balance. So no, it doesn't change my opinion on it. But it has not been a pleasant experience, I guess. But it's something we can do. It's added some time to our office for sure. And we're gonna have to try to figure out how to do that going forward because it's going to be a monthly project going forward. So.
I mean, you probably don't know the answer to this, but with the amount of probably school districts in the state facing this issue this year, do you see potential changes to the program or just thought process of accessing it or simplifying it?
I mean, there's been no murmurings of that from people I've talked to. However, I wouldn't be surprised if they have to have a discussion. I mean, we're very small in the grand scheme of things. Like the conversation that the two gentlemen were having yesterday about using the best money, one of them was like, hey, it's $800,000. It's nothing. Let's just figure it out. To us, that's not nothing. But he's talking when you compare that to Jeffco, DPS, if those places are borrowing huge chunks of money, this is very small amounts. So I don't think it's going to be hugely impactful, especially if most of the school districts are mountain communities that aren't borrowing huge chunks. But I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, how much money does the state want to loan out for free every year?
Right.
I think they're going to have a cap on that eventually. Right. So it could change down the road for sure.
Yeah, and I guess with that, is there a risk of they don't have enough funds to lend?
Right.
Yeah, I mean that's a very
Not at this time.
I think it's a very
No
good
conversation
question.
That
I mean, they'll just print it. I mean,
Yeah, it's a good question. At the moment, I don't have an answer to it.
I think when they get that, that's when you'll see the regulations start of every district has to have this much on hand, and then it won't be a discussion for us. They'll change the tabor amounts. They'll change those regulations as they hit those, as they don't have the margins to support what's just happened in our state, right? In that sense. I just think it's really important to just go, all right, we're not going to hold $5 million in unassigned fund balance. So we got to figure this out. I don't think the regulations they're putting on us are like crazy. If you're asking for free loans, I think they're reasonable, but it's just, you need to be aware that business office, it's got a steep learning curve and it has permanent work to it.
I think it'll get better as we go because now that the problem was we had to provide 2 years of data for every 10-day period over 2 years of all of our expenditures and revenues. So now that that's done, I'm updating it every month, so it's a lot simpler from here on out. So I think we're going to be in an okay spot, but it's added a lift for sure. So I think, and it's nothing outside of what we're capable of. We're definitely capable of.
Good question.
Yeah, so our school districts that are fiscally the same, close to the same size of ours, do they have a $4 or $5 million unassigned fund balance?
I would have to go around. I'm sure you could find one or two that are there, and you're going to find a bell curve of people that are in various spaces.
So if it seems like most of them don't,
Mm-hmm.
it just seemed like our auditor, who seems quite bright,
Mm-hmm.
he made it seem like this was just a piece of cake, and I agree with doing this whole process completely, but it just seemed like it was going to be a lot easier than he led on.
Yes.
And now are you indicating that
Yes.
has something changed legally, or is this we didn't get the full picture?
I don't think we got the full picture. I think it is, once you're in the program, I don't think it's overly complicated. And I don't
Okay.
think it's hard. I mean, it's not hard in the sense that they're going to give us the money, and they've repeatedly said they're going to give us the money, and you have everything we need from you. And then they come back and say, well, we need this also. But I have full confidence that in 10 days we're going to make our first draw of $360,000, and there's going to be no issues with it. So in terms of getting the money, I mean, it's, I don't know, I guess it's easier than making the money, but it's, yeah, I don't think the idea, I think from their perspective, yeah, it's easy to go get the money. They don't put into how much work it takes to do it.
It's your footwork they're not taking into account.
Yeah.
And then once you're in the club, in theory, it should be a little bit less on man hours.
Yeah, I think
Maybe metaphorically, if you were to tell me spay and neutering an animal is really easy, right? But for me, it might not be that first couple times.
Yeah, and I don't think we got the full picture. And I also think they're dealing with a crazy amount of volume right now. I mean, he consistently said, oh, I'm going to have your first set of spreadsheets to you next week. And then that turned into 2 weeks, and that turned into 3 weeks. And when we contact him, well, we've got 30 other districts that are trying to do the same thing as you right now. We're not anticipating that. So I don't know that the treasurer's office was anticipating this. So that goes back to Joe's question. I don't know that they're ready for it.
Yeah, we need the loan because the formula is jacked up. So maybe this helps fix the formula.
Yeah.
So Aaron, we will be able to pay our staff.
Yes. Yeah, currently we have enough money to do it this month. I built the spreadsheet, I built the budget heavy this month so that it looks like we're going to be spending more money, which was at their direction to make sure we borrowed enough money.
Borrowed enough. Okay.
But we have about $900,000 in cash in our capital reserve accounts that we're going to pull. On top of that, we're still going to get a state equalization payment, which is going to be bigger in January than it has been in previous months because our total funding went up. So they're projecting more like $420,000 is coming in. Plus, we still have $300,000 or $400,000 left. So.
Okay.
So yeah, we have enough to pay our staff this month and pay all of our bills. And we'll be drawing $1.5 million by the start of next month, which will pay next month's bills. And then we'll see where the actuals line out. We may have to borrow a little bit more.
So in February, if they keep with their timelines that they're doing with spreadsheets, it might be a little tense to make sure that we get those monies to pay our.
No, I mean, actually in February, they had me change the spreadsheet. So it looks like we're paying our staff early, and this is not, it's all above board. It was recommended to me.
Okay.
It was recommended by the gentleman who authorized the loan to make sure we had it in time. So we will have it early February.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you.
And then by April, May, it's paid off, settled out, or is this like a near end of the year?
Theoretically, by May, it should be paid off according to the spreadsheet. It shows you when you pay it off, how much you borrow, and then you just update that month to month.
Just so much change in local property taxes that I think we need to go through a cycle or two and be able to.
Yeah, I mean,
be
I
able to
think
make better predictions.
I think realistically May, Joe, because I think we're gonna get some of our taxes March, April, the bulk there, but then we take kind of a little dip in May before we get a lot of them in June again. So I think it has to be paid back by June 30th, but I think end of May, early June is when it's fully paid off.
I mean, if it has to be paid back, we don't get the money from them. I don't know how that would go, so I guess we'll see.
I don't.
Hopefully we
either.
don't see.
Hopefully we don't see how that goes.
Love the other.
So you asked for some updates. It's where we were at the beginning of the year. We're focused on that. The big, obviously, Oak Street annexation, a lot of that. February when we come back, you know, I've already been working with Will and Sean of like getting ready for our capital projects conversations. That kicks off then in February, and then you've already started to hear principals talk about what they're going to be looking for as asks in operations. That kind of starts in March. You can so it has been a busy. I think it's only been 2 days back, but we've all been at it for a little bit. So other than that, you know, it's also that season where some of our kids who have the least amount of resiliency are struggling the most in schools. So that pops up as some bigger discipline stuff. So that's normally when we're having to work with families and whatever legal representation they have to try and navigate those waters. So that's always a lot of work. For my team, it's obviously individual based and kind of confidential, but that takes up a lot of the time. But for the most part, it's hearing things like the high school tonight. You know, Will and I talk all the time. We've seen a lot of different districts. Nobody else is getting to hear this. You know, it's amazing to get to deal with the things we get to deal with and have capacity. We'll talk about policy today. I worked on policy review, and I was like, there's no other superintendent who's, you know, there's too many other problems to sit down and go through the G book of policies and start to dig into those. And so it's a lot of work, but it's also from a perspective standpoint, it's just so much to celebrate. And I liked what Jesse said, we're having fun. And I think that's really important for us as we keep moving forward is let's have fun, right? Let's keep improving. Let's keep doing that stuff. And I think we've seen a big reset this week. Last year, I was still struggling to keep the doors of every building open and operational. That's 12 months ago. It's really important to hold that paradigm and understand how much in 12 months we've been able to reset. People have been able to set the pandemic behind them. We've got a few spaces that still need to kind of reset post-pandemic, but every month it gets a little easier, right? You start to shortlist things, and so that's where we're at district-wide. I don't know if people have questions or anything you want to talk to Will about.
Okay. 5 minutes. Take a break. Come back and finish strong.
We're gonna start moving. Okay.
We'll see about that, Martha.
Go
ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, he's not.
That's not enough. Gather your
I don't disagree.
Okay. So you don't have a.
Well, right.
You know everything.
He is endorsed.
Okay, good. Thank you.
As a father of a seventh grader, it's
He
like
hasn't-
things are fine now. They're
He's
fine.
not-
Right. It's how it is, and we have a good culture that way. But let's.
So I mean, out of the people I know, they might not have an issue. So.
Yeah, you don't even know. Yeah, cool.
And we can
Okay.
look at- to do this thing, but we still don't- I don't disagree.
I assume that it's known, but
For the eighth grade
no, I know why we
kid,
did
it'll
it.
be huge. And Emily didn't really. But she'll go about that. I have a. She's a science.
20 minutes before I It's part of the game.
I just know it's.
It's called negotiation.
It dies, yeah. So. All right, here we go. Let's get started. Let's get this thing done. Consent agenda. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Ben. Any questions, comments?
Because we had that 2-week break for, because we were off for 2 weeks, so we just didn't have like, and just time
Yeah,
wise.
Brett.
So all of those numbers will just be included in February. Yep. Yep.
Is the city the annexation agreement?
It's on action.
Action.
I did the CHCA handbook like.
I just haven't, same thing, time, just didn't get the updates.
And Matt, when
So
they
are-
work on some of
so
that
are you-
stuff,
did
it
you
was just
pull that
how
up?
it is.
Was
It's
that-
taken.
Yes, it was
Okay,
in the,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah,
Approved
be
on
like
the agenda.
So we'll pick it up in February.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll pick it up in February.
Didn't have time. Yes, they're done. Okay. Are we ready for a vote on the consent
Yes.
agenda? Dr. Breckenridge Pettit, Dr. Hill,
Aye.
Mr. Hobbs.
Aye.
Ms. Lundberg is no longer with us this evening. She's not on the phone. Mrs. Pascal.
Aye.
Ms. Strickman.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
Discussion items. Student focus group. We did that earlier. So, boom. Retirement. Hard to fill positions. David, take it away.
I just wanted to make sure a discussion item. We talked about this, I think, a little offline with one or two people, but we are looking at. Thank you for the support. We are looking at having discussion and saying that because of our housing, because of the cost of living, fits within the boundaries of PE, RA, or paras kind of qualifications to say we have a hard to fill position. And we definitely see that in terms of our applications and being able to maintain people who can come and stay in our community, right? Sometimes we're hiring people and they can't stay, so they move on. So we have some turnover issues. So we can do that. That would then open up the opportunity that if somebody was retired, they could come back, earn their retirement, as well as earn full salary with us. So
At a lower salary level.
yeah, there's some more benefits. So they wouldn't, let's say they had 30 years and they had a master's in 56, they would come back at step 7. And they would no longer be non-probationary. They would be probationary teachers, right? So, and there's some other aspects. I mean, they would have to take a risk that they'd have to reapply, right, for that position. And so it's not like you can make a promise. You'd have to follow all HR rules. They vacate a position, post a position. It's not like you can make some handshake promise that says I can guarantee that job. And so for some of those people, that those risks may not be worth it. Of course, if you have an amazing employee and they want to keep on working, then that principal is going to say, let's get that person back in here and keep on rolling. So for those people who feel confident in their relationship with their principal and their performance, I doubt that's a big risk. For those people who may not feel confident in that, then that risk may speak to them. So we are looking at that piece, and I just wanted to make sure it was said out loud. I would think an action item in February to be expected. At this time, I am going to lean in towards making that happen. So my intent, and what I wanted to say out loud was my intent, is to proceed with posting our position that's hard to fill, which opens up that opportunity as we head into hiring season. I would like that done in February. So if any of our retirees are looking at that, we can make that decision in February, March, so that we're not making those decisions in May and then trying to figure out. Some of our best teaching staff, I can think of so many, are our veterans, right? And they're at that stage in their career where they're saying 1 more year, and I'd love them to say 5 more years. And I could list some names. We would all say we would love to see 5 more years if that could maintain some of our best teaching staff. As the entire industry is very
kind of new and young in the industry, right? You have a lot of young teachers, not as much experience. Experience is kind of shifting. So that's one of the things. Will, and then Jody.
I think the other piece to it is instead of just the one more year, maybe it isn't 5 more, but maybe it's 2 or 3 more. If you do a transition year, you're kind of done after one. This would be similar to a transition year for multiple years, potentially.
I just want to say that aloud and make sure nobody's like, David, don't go down there. Don't bring that in February. It's my main point in bringing that up tonight.
I just need to confirm understanding.
Okay.
So, as it is today, we don't have this designation.
Correct.
But if we get this designation, then it allows us to have a teacher that's retired and drawing para come back or come into and work.
Or maintain,
Or
retire,
maintain.
and then keep on going.
So retiring, so you get your para and you also are getting a staff district paycheck. Right.
So
But,
it
and
is
that's, so it's the designation that we need to get.
It used to be that they designated for us. Now we can designate ourselves as rural, hard to fill.
Who is it? Yeah. Okay.
So yes, to answer
So I
your
do
question,
understand.
it could be someone retired. It could be someone currently working who retires and chooses to come back.
And my guess is, I mean, things stabilize and workforces are always changing at some point, that this window will probably shift. And that's another thing those employees will have to think about, right? And para might take that authority back unto themselves. And that, those are so it's a window of time. And I think we're going to go ahead and chase it and see if we can.
Para wins too, because that employee who is drawing from his or her para account is also repaying into their para account as a active employee.
And they don't get to keep. So typically, like an employee right now, like if I pay in 11%, or so it pulls out, that's my money. So even if I leave and I don't have 20 full years, I can't retire, I can pull that money out, put in another 401k. In this case, they don't get to keep that money. Para gets to keep that money. So para does win in this case by doing that.
Is this a designation for the district that we would have to undesignate, or is this a designation for the next school year?
I think we're just in a dynamic time and people can't make that. It's going to be almost a year by year thing. Right now, we can just make that designation. It may not even take board action. That's part of the next few weeks of research. Right. And there's also, I need to go out and speak to staff. Will and I do, to see staff that are in that part of their career, to see how they feel about it, what they think about it, and listen. So there's some more steps of research, of listening.
And this would apply to any position, or is it?
That's my understanding at this time, as Will and I have looked at it, is we would just kind of make it district wide based on rural, hard to fill, housing, cost of living, and just across the whole thing, not say this school, that position, but not this school and that position.
Yeah, I would say pursuing it makes sense, and educating staff. Pros, cons.
The nice thing was this kind of, I won't say originated from staff, but some staff really started to dig into it and did a lot of the research with para. So it's coming from within, and I think we can do a better job of sharing that information. I know just informally, some of the conversations that I've heard, people have reached out. Hey, is this really happening? Is this a possibility? I might be interested. So.
And some of those teachers who reached out to us with letters of just letters in the last 2 months about some of their concerns about compensation at that end of the pay scales. This would be those kind of people. This could be a benefit to them. So we have spoken to them. So I have a listening session to discuss with staff, and we'll see who comes, at least one, maybe more, around facility planning, making sure staff understand that we're not looking to go into operating costs to pay for facility concepts, right? So I want to make sure they have a chance to hear that and try and answer questions and help get ahead of that. And then I think we'll also, before the next meeting, be having a staff meeting for some of our veterans who are at that point in their career, and do some sharing and some listening before we come back and say, here, I'd like you to vote on this. This is a solid plan with questions answered.
Okay. Combine C and D if you wish. It's all kind of the same thing, but HEA admin building in Spartan Heights. Take them as you want.
All right, I just want to make sure that it's just a discussion because I would think in February, maybe March, we'll just see the pace of things. We've got to look at annexation and make sure people understand again, we're not looking, the goal is how do we do facility planning from a 1-year thing to a 10-year kind of picture where we are working our tails off to avoid extra taxes. How do we keep the tax bill down and make sure that we're taking care of the buildings and getting the right assets? So we talked about in our work session, how do you pay to do this final phase and the annexation of this building? And the question is, I liked how Joe said it, we want to make sure we have the right assets, not just assets. So one of the things I expect to bring back to you would be the HEA or the former admin building at 310 East 9th Street is to put in front of you whatever action is necessary so we can put that on the market and sell that property. Sale of that property then would go immediately back into what is the estimated cost for the final phase of this building. The first market analysis we got, which had 3 different methodologies, it's not the final number, was, I probably shouldn't say it out loud as we get into negotiations, so I got to probably be quiet. But, we've got those numbers, we've done the analysis for the first blush, but I expect to bring that back to you guys in either February or March. Again, just depends. So that would be one of the assets that we could let go of. And then I'm just going to jump straight to D, which is Spartan Heights. Spartan Heights was a project we started. Our previous boards really wanted to make sure our community was working on housing. And so they tried to model for everyone else how you can take your assets and make partnerships. And we did that. So the board at that time, just to make sure everyone has history, right? We had a city block in Poncha Springs that wasn't an asset that really helped us do our mission. So they started housing, and we worked with private, public. We worked with public and public. We worked with public and nonprofit. Made multiple partnerships. We were able to do deed restrictions, and all those different pieces and parts of affordability. You guys at this board have been said that's not where we want to put our energy. So we invested our monies. And at the end of that, we owned outright a 4-plex, that apartment has 4, the building has 4 apartments, and we owned half of a duplex, which we've been renting to staff to try and solve that problem. So we have staff in those units. We would be looking to definitely bring next month or March an option to sell the duplex half and let that go. Those funds would then go to the final phase of this building, paying that bill. The other one would be that quadplex, but that one is going to be more complicated and I think it's going to take a few more months. We can figure out how much a quadplex is worth, how we can estimate what we think is a fair number that keeps us in that affordable range. There's a lot of different things. That quadplex is a much more complicated thing. We have no interest in selling off an asset to a developer or something else. Right, we'd have to figure out how do you move that on to someone else in the community. That might be housing trust, that might be another partner. And so that's what we'll be talking about the next few months. You'll see those 3 properties come back at you, I expect. The HEA or 910 East 9th Street, looking to move that on. The duplex half that we own in Spartan Heights, and then the quadplex. Those revenues then would go straight into paying the bill for this final phase of this building. So, questions? Yep.
How does the all of the computer routing that went through that HEA, has that been taken care of, or is that something we'll have to contend with?
You will see that next month in our work session when we'll work on capital projects. That'll be the one capital projects I can guarantee you that you'll see that we need to do this summer. Okay. Yeah, because that would have to be taken care of. But the team has figured out short-term and long-term and has bids that are already out there. So summer project for sure. Andy?
And then we would just look at doing like a rent back for the HEA building until this
Yeah.
is done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we wouldn't be able to, obviously, the students have to have housing, so you'd have to have some sort of conditional space to do that.
Or even a sale date in the future, potentially.
Yeah, there's 2 different ways on that.
kind of continuing to solve that.
Put a lot of pressure on to get this done.
Yes, which is good and bad. Pressure makes my job uncomfortable, but it does get things moving, and I think that that's important.
Are we pretty confident it can get done in the timeline? Like,
After today's work session, now I'm going to go back and talk to the team and take the next step. That's one, kind of that design piece. Two, we got to figure out annexation, and then we'd have to figure out who that potential buyer is. We know we have people who are interested, but we'd have to figure out, because our goal to have HEA over here next year, but it's a little different. We could move them mid-year if we have to flex our construction timeline. So I'm hoping in February to be able to bring a hard number, hard construction timeline.
Yeah, and I would say there's the pressure component, but to me, obviously, if something on the HEA side of things just cost prohibitive, whatever, Spartan Heights makes a lot of sense to move regardless. But I think kind of the whole big picture component of both moving forward to kind of facilitate this project is still the best plan.
So I just want to make sure publicly we're going with those things and it's getting clear, right? Because our big project this year is a master facility plan. So this sets it up. This is again why I'm trying to meet with staff. I have one in person next week. I'll probably set up a Zoom meeting with them to make sure they have a chance to ask questions about these items. So, anything else? Thank you.
Okay. So we'll be seeing those soon, and lots of work from now until the next meeting. See if things come to fruition. Action items. No second reading policy, so looking for a motion to approve mill levy certification as provided in resolution 2023-24-05. Thank you, Andy.
So you guys are good. If you have questions, I do just want to say thanks to Sheila.
Do we have a second? Sorry.
Somebody's on minutes. Okay.
I've got Jen over here. We're good now. Okay, now we can do.
All right. Sorry, I thought I heard a second already. I just want to say thanks to Aaron and Sheila, as well as the county. It was an impossible task to do this assessment with the way the legislator and the governor handled it, and they got through it with relative ease. So I just want to say appreciation to not just our team, but also the county who had to work hard at that.
Yeah, and actually both counties too. I mean, we have Fremont and Chaffey that have worked with us. So thanks, David. But definitely to both of them, it was a really difficult task. One thing I wanted to just say, I think it's important publicly, and it's an important talking point for you all to know. If you haven't looked at it yet, you're approving 28.211 mills this year, which is actually a decrease in overall mills from last year. So even though we are having to increase our mills every year, because of our bonds, because of and the amount of property taxes that have gone up, we're actually levying less mills, even though it's more money total. But I think that's important that we're not changing our mill, we're not increasing the mills that we're levying. So it's an important talking point. Last year, you certified 29.057 mills, and this year you're doing 28.211, and that's including the one per year that we have to increase. So it's something that's, I mean, you can't change the mills that you're certifying really, but it's something that's an important talking point that we're not actively trying to add more mills to the county or to any of the taxpayers.
And I know your letter around taxes went out today for our emails, and then your annual report, which has quite a bit about finances. I'm hoping that helps taxpayers at least understand a complicated topic.
Any other questions? Thank you both.
Dr. Breckenridge-Pettit? Dr. Hill?
Aye.
Mr. Hobbs? Mrs. Pascal?
Aye.
Ms. Schickman?
Aye.
And Mr. Smith?
All right. Okay, looking for a motion to approve amended 23-24 budget and the associated appropriation resolution 2023-24-06.
So moved.
Second.
Again, David, comments? Aaron, comments?
I don't think so. For me, I think I've been trying to keep you as updated as possible with all the big changes over the past few months. If you have any questions, happy to work through that. But going to try to get you by the 20th a continuation of the financial strategy plan for next year's budget. But I think I've been trying to update you pretty regularly about this one, so hopefully you feel comfortable with it.
Okay, thank you. For a vote?
Dr. Breckenridge-Pettit. Dr. Hill. Mr. Hobbs.
Aye.
Mrs. Paschal.
Aye.
Ms. Schickman.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
Aye. Okay, looking for a motion for approval of pre-annexation agreement for 627 Oak Street.
So moved.
Okay. David, clarifiers, questions?
This one's pretty basic. I would call it the pre-annexation agreement. It's really just a process document to allow us to get moving forward. I'm expecting on Thursday a little more detailed pre-annexation agreement. The goal from the city is they're trying to work with us to say, let's streamline the process. Let's get as much in place as possible. And then we would be in front of the concept review, I believe is what they call it, for the town this next month in February before we meet again to look at the annexation. Of course, you need all that paperwork, then to look at costs when we're talking about the final phase of this building. So all those things are connected. I did have our legal review this and had no concerns with this document. But Matt, I think you wanted to ask something about this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, have we tried to negotiate some of these fees with the city? They're asked that they waive, they're treating us like a normal developer with this agreement.
Joe?
Funnily enough, the fire department paid the same fees. So
Really?
they say that's kind of the enterprise monies and how they fund it. And that was a discussion, and it was very quickly, everybody pays the fees. So
we have tried to bring that up. It has been a short conversation.
All right.
I think we're going to continue to have some conversations. I know I got a bill today that the itemized things, I'm not going to pay for all those. So I think it's going to be a line by line conversation. So I reached out to Christy Dune today just to see if we can make sure we're working together so that we keep all our departments as collaborative as we possibly can. The city, the county, they're always going to say we don't want to play any favorites, and yet we also don't want to spend taxpayer dollars and just shuffled around.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that, yeah, exactly. I don't know that the taxpayers would be super happy with, having one taxpaying entity having to pay another one, but.
I'm going to try and be careful. I think it would benefit all elected officials to have conversations about what you just said.
Yeah.
I don't think all elected officials are resonating with that perspective. Mm-hmm. And I think it would benefit them if you as elected officials called them as elected officials and had some of these conversations, because this is also the things that get in the way of us solving problems in our community.
Because as this project moves forward, we're looking at tap fees and these other items.
Right now, we are budgeted to pay everything the same way any developer would pay for it, including all annexation, drawings of curbs, streets and gutters, sidewalks, all those things we talked about in the work session. So we are budgeting and proceeding. It's nice to have DLR, to have that large organization to say how atypical is this. At the moment, I'm being told it's not atypical what's being asked of us. And I think Chaffey County and Salida has done a great job historically to say, well, we can do different and better, and we can work together and partner. I think we have a history of that. I'm hoping we can find that sweet spot, but it will take you guys making phone calls to other elected officials.
Thank you.
I think you answered my question as well, as I was wondering if that is the norm. And because we were looking into that with the county, different topic, right?
Different, but
Just to
similar.
see how schools are getting their land.
Yes, similar. Of you guys are seeing a perspective that they're not articulating at this moment.
Yeah, we could add that to a discussion item. Yeah.
That'd be great.
And just to clarify and make sure I'm right, really, DLR is doing this. You're not worried about this too much here.
No, I've delegated this to DLR. I mean, this is outside of my expertise and everything else in terms of annexation. So just trying to stay abreast of it. Sean and Will are also on the calls with me, Aaron's. So now we're all kind of engaged trying to, because it's detail time.
So is DLR the main person having the conversations with the city?
They're the ones driving kind of the overall process and getting documents ready and everything else. And then I think each of us are trying to have other conversations where we can with our neighbors.
Because they don't likely have a relationship
Right.
with the city, right?
Yep.
Yeah, but there's like the meeting I went to was Will was there, David, myself, and then DLR, Greg was there, and the city representatives. So.
And then I've got, obviously Joe's been doing facilities and we added Karen. So I've been emailing Karen and everything else. So she should be back in the loop here in person soon. I know she's got a high interest and she's really engaging on this thing. So just making sure you know there's 2 board members you can reach out to if you want to make sure there's something we need to dig into or you want to get clarity. It's not just Joe, it's Joe and Karen at this time. And if you have a firm opinion on what you're bringing up, Matt, we need to say it out loud. It's going to have to be you guys being really clear and crisp and with your opinions. It's not something that I think I can just carry forward successfully.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do a little bit of research on that.
Microphone. I'll do a little bit of research on my end, figure out what I can determine is sort of the norm when it comes to these sort of intergovernmental type developments.
Yep. In our smaller, more rural settings of Colorado, versus Front Range.
If we were an outlier, it's okay to be an outlier in that way and working together with an organization that has the ability to waive some fees, reduce some fees, or collaborate on this or that. It's part of the beauty.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Vote.
All right. Dr. Breckenridge Pettit. Dr. Hill.
Aye.
Mr. Hawks.
Aye.
Mrs. Pascal. Ms. Schickman. And Mr. Smith.
Aye. Okay, jumping into board communications committees. Mandy, anything from BOCES?
We haven't had another meeting. There's one next week. And did you just see that email from Susan? I think it's going to last from like Wednesday.
You can tag team it.
Because we're having a retreat, a meeting and a retreat in the same day.
No, I have a meeting with her tomorrow. I will dig into
So I
that.
should have an update next month.
Okay.
Facilities we tackled pretty heavy again. Continue to be a topic conversation. Is there anything that anybody else wants to hear? No, right now.
We did just before break send off a draft contract to staff over the county in regard to that long-term land solution. So that is moving. And I did, over break, I got back a new CMC draft lease for the Kesner property. So need to dig into that one here. This thing slow down later this week. So both of those big contracts did move forward over the holidays.
Okay. Communications, Jen, Matt.
Thank you, Kim. Felt really horrible emailing a bunch of potential changes to Kim on the last day, right before holiday break at the last minute. So thanks for your patience.
Yeah.
Looks amazing. I'm excited for our
Yes,
community.
it should be in the mail process, like it's in the post office system now. So in days, it should be in people's mailboxes, which is really exciting. So.
Just before the meeting, I sent everybody an email to sort of a sample newsletter. I don't know if folks had a chance to look at it, but I would like to maybe put some time aside during the retreat to talk about board level communications, how we can better communicate with our community. I think things like the newsletter are great, but I also think there's things that we can do digitally that are pretty minimal on the time side. It only took me an hour or two to put that together. And that's something that could be done monthly, quarterly. Anyway, I think as a board, we should maybe talk about that. If something, I'm sorry, this is way past my bedtime. So fading.
I like it, and I've used that company before. And once you get the initial one set up in the style that you like, it's very, very easy.
Yeah, it was super easy.
Copy
I
and
mean, I just
paste.
went and Googled sort of email newsletter and MailChimp's, it's run by Intuit. So, but there's plenty of other sort of examples and companies that do similar things. And I plugged in the website, and then it went to the Salida School's website and actually pulled those images directly from the website.
I mean, that's the retreat agenda.
Yeah.
Okay. Jen, anything more for Casby?
All the convention presentations are now available if anyone would like to go back and read through those slide decks. There's a fall or a winter conference as well, which I kind of thought was the same thing as last year with visiting with the legislators, but I see now it's different. I'm not sure if that really holds any value, but if anyone's into that, let me know. It's January 19th. So I'm not sure. I think these things are worth like a hotel stay
Right.
kind of situation.
Are they changing the state capitol lobbying day to be a little bit more surgical, or is it the same format as it's been in the past?
And I thought I might need to reach out because I noticed on this event it did have that aspect, but also had like Phil Weiser speaking and more of a feel of what we were just at. But I guess I could reach out because, again, it has 3 hours there, but if it's the way it was last time, I'm not sure it's very efficient.
I am going next week. I'm at the Capitol. I'm going with Case just because I don't feel like I have a good sense of what's going on with this session and how it's developing. I talked to Tracy Rainey briefly today about some stuff. So let me go get to the Capitol, see where what may be the key issues, and come back and maybe at the January 20th retreat I can update you guys on where I kind of see it going, and then we could start to see where it's going. So I'm hoping I have capacity this year to engage the legislator more.
Okay. Dak, I'm assuming there hasn't been a meeting or any updates since?
Just a informal discussion a little bit recently, but we're going to have on the 24th, more of a financial planning meeting with some of the members of the community and part of DAC to try to get everybody, hear their concerns, get everybody on the same page of what we know currently.
Very good. Policy audit, February, we trying to tackle book G, and then March books E and F. David or Jody, do you want to allude to the CBT conversation that Jody brought up?
Sure. So Jody just brought up, and I think it's valid. So G is most of your personnel stuff, and obviously that's your negotiated policy. Leads in the middle of that. So really, if they're trying to move all their negotiations into the spring. So we're going to double up this year, basically. So Will and I and Aaron, we did it in the fall for I don't know, mid-year. Now we're switching to a proactive mode. So it'll be doubled up, and then we'll do it again next spring. So we'll get the fall. That being said, it's if we have a lot of thoughts on any of those negotiated policies where we want to see some changes, we need to go through all those G book policies, get some recommendations so that in the February board meeting, you guys can talk about those and make sure if there's any strong positions we hold, we can have that feedback so we can carry it back to CBT in a timely manner. So if we hold the thing. So I got through setting up the audit for G, E, and F today, just in terms of organization. I think I've got Jody on that. Matt, you were previously.
It was Karen.
Oh, it was Karen?
Karen's on facility.
I thought she was on G, the personnel policies.
And I think there's another, and I have to look back.
Nice. Okay, so G is Karen and Jody, and then E and Matt.
No, it was just
I
two.
thought, yeah.
We'll just see. Matt,
Why
I'm
don't
gonna
you
work with
save
you
that
and
for something else?
Minutes for the last meeting.
Yeah, I thought Matt was E and F, and Karen and Jody were.
And Karen, I think definitely wanted to facilitate.
okay. So obviously, I'm just saying my first effort goes to G, and I'm gonna try and get all the way through that. It was, as I was laying it out today and trying to frame up all the work, it was daunting, to say the least. But I got through most of the initial layout of doing stuff and downloading everything. So I'll start sharing folders, and I got all that set up. Which ones are required, which ones are negotiated. Starting to lay all those things. So it's all in one place now. I'll start trying to tackle that, have that ready for the February meeting so that we can then take what positions we want to based on any red lines. We've got suggestions from legal, including the leave policy, and then we can get that feedback to CBT so that by May, any policy changes that could have financial impacts will be solved so we can roll those into budget conversations. That's the goal, right? Ambitious, but we got it. Excuse me.
Okay. Future meetings. I think we know what our agenda will look like. Future meeting being set the January 20th work session, work day, non-retreat. I think we kind of have a basic outline of the meeting, but if there's things that you guys want to see, make sure you get them over to myself, David, Kim, and we'll work on that. Putting that together and get a agenda out before the meeting.
Mandy, are you still going to lead point on the evaluation?
Yeah, I just added that to my to-do list to try to send that out to you.
And we will do that here, maybe probably upstairs.
Yeah, upstairs.
So 5 more Pop-Tarts if we need to.
It might be needed. The more Pop-Tarts we want to remember in the last 48 hours.
We will be back here again. February 13th will be the date. Agenda review. Who wants to throw their name in for that one?
So that's like the first week of February?
Something like that.
Yeah.
We usually throw it out there that week.
I'll reach out like the week before and get it confirmed. I could do that. Okay. Later in the week. Okay. I'll start with David's schedule usually, and then Joe. Unless anybody else wants to join us.
Jody, you got it.
You're in.
May meeting.
So I just said there's a conflict in this space, so just keeping it on everyone's radar. We talked at the last meeting about just upstairs at Oak.
Upstairs.
So just make sure the whole world knows that's where we'll be in May.
And I know everyone's ready to leave. I just want to, it doesn't have to be decided, but I just want to say out loud. Last year, circumstances led us to have April and May 2 board meetings. One was kind of business, one was finances. You guys at that time were positive on that order or that separation of those two things. That's 2 different meetings. So I just want to talk to Joe or myself. If you have opinions on April, May, you'd rather see that conversation pulled out. So finances is just one night. So we're not here at 10 o'clock. Okay? The downside is cost you another evening. You can expect a work session around capital projects. 4:30 or 5.
Yeah.
Something in that range.
Will we need a work session potentially for some of these contracts, or would we just exec during the meeting?
I mean, we might get to the place we picked up. We've got a lot on our plates. We might have to say we need 2 meetings because it might not be able to be done in one evening. We're getting to that level of load. We'll just have to see how February, March kind of set up.
Okay.
It's fine. Just naming it now.
Okay. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Beautiful. Thank you all. 9:53.
All right. Let me just make sure your microphones are turned off.